Okay. Start off, the claim that I'm responding to is that constant use of computers is damaging to our health. Following that claim, there are three secondary claims. One is lack of sleep, two is bad posture, and three is computer vision syndrome. I will be discussing that constant computer usage sheds only a small bit of damage to our health. I will do this by demonstrating that the three claims the advocate uses do not portray the overall health. So basically, first of all, the advocate claims that constant use of computers is bad, for health because of lack of sleep. Now, as a college student, it's easy to say for me to say that I know a ton of people with computers, and most of my friends, family, peers, they have computers, and I'm like sure a lot of them that I know use computers to actually fall asleep. This includes myself. Before I go to bed, sometimes I'll sit on my bed with computer and read like articles and stuff, and that'll get me tired and fall asleep. Same as someone would do it, as reading a book. They use a book to fall asleep. So I see it hard to believe that it can cause a lack of sleep for everybody. So secondly, the advocate claims that computer usage is bad for your back posture. Well, I would like to say that the computer itself doesn't really cause bad back posture. I would say that the bad posture comes from the chair, the position one sits in, but the computer itself has no effect to the bad posture. At least I wouldn't think so. If we were to look at this logically, bad posture might come from the chair or position someone is sitting in order to use a computer, but the claim that the computer is the cause of the bad posture doesn't make much sense. I will agree that bad posture is bad for one's health and could cause long-term effects, but I highly disagree that the computer is the main cause of it. This therefore concludes that the claim is taken on computer usage being bad for our health is only somewhat true, based on what I said. Lastly, the advocate claims that using computer too much causes computer vision syndrome. Well, this is a syndrome, also known as CVS. It's something that people get when they stare at a computer for too long. It has symptoms like headaches, eye strain, light sensitivity, irritated eyes, slow refocusing, double vision, and color distortions. Well, if you notice these symptoms, none of them are really long-term. Actually, the website WebMD, I did some research, and the website WebMD claims that there is no evidence that computer vision syndrome causes any long-term damage to the eyes. This then proves that CVS is not quite as bad for one's health as is not as bad for someone's health in the long run. Therefore, it disproves that the constant computer usage is not as bad as the advocate claims. In conclusion, the constant use of computers has only a small effect on our health, and not only does it have a small effect on our health, it takes the effect on only a handful of people. At least I would agree with that. So, that's it.
All right, you labeled the advocate's main and secondary points pretty clearly. The transitions between ideas were easy to follow. On your individual points, your responses, look, this whole argument is really an attempt to diminish the advocate's claim as opposed to deny it straight out. It would be ridiculous to claim that people don't get eye strain using computers, that they don't sit in awkward positions and have some problems, but you try to minimize the importance of those problems on a couple of these points and the source of the problem on other points. And I thought you did an okay job on that. On the first part about difficulty falling asleep, I do think this is a little problematic because the only evidence you have is your own personal example and inference. differences there. So I think that's a good way to introduce the idea, but if you could find any other evidence to support this, I think that would be helpful. I don't remember exactly what the advocate's evidence on this point was, and if they're citing an authority that suggests that people have been developing problems falling asleep because the computer overstimulates them, that sort of thing, then I think that's going to be a little bit more convincing than your hypothetical personal experience in that situation. And so that's a tough one for you to get. You need something more substantive there. On the issue about the posture, an attempt to shift the blame to the way people sit, that's a perfectly reasonable challenge to make. But it seems like there are a lot of other arguments that you could be making here. For instance, there are all kinds of things that people can purchase to improve their posture while they're sitting at a computer. There are, backrests. There are, things that they're supposed to rest their hands on when they're operating the keyboard. By the way, computer screens can now be adjusted substantially more than once upon a time. So are they really talking about the kinds of computers that are available now? And by the way, don't forget that a lot of people are using computers now that are in tablet form, which doesn't require them to sit in a posture that is particularly problematic. And you could be arguing that the trend is away from stationary computers where people have to sit at a particular station. I think that's a pretty obvious argument that you miss that would seem to diminish that claim also. You're kind of, got to press on what the causality is. I didn't think that was as strong an argument as some of the things that were sitting right in front of you, and I was surprised that you missed them. On the last point, though, I thought that you had a really good response here. You had good evidence to respond to the point suggesting that there's nothing that suggests it's substantial, and that was a good contrast. The other thing to do is kind of compare it to whatever the advocate said. So, you're following the structure right, that's good. You've got some arguments that I think have some substance to them, but some arguments that also seem a little bit thin. All right, thank you.